Welcome to today's episode. We are going to be talking about how to increase your satisfaction in your eating. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about because I love food and I love to eat, and I've gotten so much pleasure from food over the years. And I've discovered if you get overly focused on dieting behaviors, it can really disconnect you from your taste preferences and your satisfaction in eating. We're also going to be starting a new 4-week series on satisfaction, hunger, fullness, and coping with your emotions with kindness. So make sure to tune in every Sunday over the next 4 weeks for those 4 topics. And then on May 27th, I have a really exciting announcement for you about some changes that I'm making in my business to serve you better. And so that weekend of May 27th on May 29th, I have a very special episode for you. So make sure you tune into that as well. Okay, so let's dive into today's topic, which is how to increase your satisfaction in eating. You know, satisfaction is about enjoying what you eat. It's about finding pleasure. When you're satisfied at the end of a meal, you're not wanting anything, right? Think about feeling satisfied in your relationship. There's nothing missing. There's nothing more that you really want to add to it. You feel satisfied. It's a feeling of completeness and things being whole. And so when we have high levels of satisfaction in our eating, we tend to have less anxiety, more peace with food. We tend to have less obsessive thoughts with food, less binges on food, less cupboard rummaging, etc. When you do not have satisfaction in your eating, what that can lead to is overeating. Have you ever been eating a food and you're like, this isn't really what I want, but you can't stop eating it? You're not even enjoying that much. Maybe you're eating past hunger. So you are, just eating multiple protein bars because that's what quote unquote you're allowed to eat, but you actually aren't that hungry, yet you're still finding yourself cramming another protein bar down your throat. All right. Has that happened to you? Or maybe you're always rummaging in your cupboards. This happened to me when I got really restrictive with the types of foods I was allowing myself to eat. I would go into my pantry and I would just be like, I don't want to eat any of this stuff. I'd have oats and peanut butter, powdered peanut butter and protein powder. And I'm like, well, I guess I could make an oatmeal bowl with peanut butter and chocolate protein powder, but it doesn't sound satisfying. It's not what I actually wanted to eat. And so if you find yourself rummaging in the cupboards and you just can't seem to stop snacking on what's in your cupboards, chances are you are not eating foods that actually satisfy you. If you are struggling with binges, that is also a sign that you are not satisfied in your eating. So it's normal to occasionally overeat or eat a little bit past fullness, which we'll talk about in a couple weeks. But in general, if you are satisfied in your eating, you won't be binge eating. You won't be ordering a pizza and a carton of ice cream and devouring both of those things. If you are satisfied in your eating, you're not going to be going to the drive-thru and getting a milkshake, a burger, and a fries and just pounding that, even though you're already full halfway through the meal. If you are feeling heightened levels of anxiety, there's a chance that you're not feeling fully satisfied in your eating. If you're feeling frustration with your eating, and if you notice a worsening relationship with food, these are all signs that you are having low levels of satisfaction in your eating. Let's just take a moment to pause and remember that food is nourishment, but food is also about pleasure. If food was just about nourishment, we wouldn't have taste buds, right? We would just eat the one food that had been provided for us on planet Earth, and we would just eat it like robots because we needed the nourishment, and then we go back to other things in life. But God designed us with taste buds because food is meant to be enjoyed. God wants you to experience pleasure and satisfaction and joy in life, and specifically within your eating. But we have gotten so disconnected from the pleasures and joy of eating, especially in American culture. Other cultures are much better at this. France, Italy, Spain, Latin American cultures, I think they have a much slower pace of life and they prioritize pleasure more than people in a lot of developed countries, like, not developed countries, obviously those are developed countries, but like Western American type of countries. So I think that it's important that we remember that, we are designed to pause and enjoy our meals and take pleasure from them. Unfortunately, dieting behaviors disconnect us from pleasure. And especially like what I was saying, in the kind of Western world, we've gotten fixated on food as this savior as our health. If we can just perfect our diet, all our health issues will go away. We'll have the body we want. We just need to find the perfect diet, right? We just need to tweak it. Oh, maybe it's the blood type diet. Oh, maybe it's keto. Oh, maybe it's vegan. Maybe it's no sugar. I just gotta find this perfect diet, right? And then all of my problems will be solved. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, okay? Food is not your savior. And dieting behaviors disconnect you from pleasure because by following rigid rules around eating, we forget what we like. And I fully admit to teaching rigid rules when I first started as a nutrition coach. When we know better, we do better. And I wanted to get my clients the best fat loss results I could get. And I just knew that if I restricted certain foods from their eating, they would accelerate their fat loss. But like at what cost, right? Did they regain the weight? Did they have binges? Did they feel deprived? Did they have less satisfaction? So my philosophy has changed over the years to where I am now, which is no forbidden foods, right? You have to encompass and incorporate all foods in your eating. So let's talk about how to increase satisfaction. Let's get to the good stuff. Okay, my number one tip for increasing food satisfaction is eat foods you like. This may seem like, well, no duh, but you'd be surprised how many of us get so disconnected from what we actually like to eat. Why do you think that is? Well, because we tend to fear that we might overdo it with our favorite foods, and or our favorite foods might change our body shape to a shape that we have decided we do not like. And that's a topic for another episode. But in general, I just want you to understand that the fear that you might overdo it on some of your foods that you really enjoy is normal. You are not abnormal if you have that fear. But I promise you, through a process called habituation, you will eventually not eat foods. You will eventually not overdo eating the foods that you like. I'm going to give you an example. Cookie dough. Who likes to eat cookie dough straight from the bowl? I do. I've loved it since I was a child. My mom didn't let me eat cookie dough out of the bowl that I recall because of the raw egg. So you know what I did? I went to my friend's house, we made a bowl of cookie dough, and we would eat it until we were almost sick. This is an example of how when you deprive yourself or your children of something, even if you think you're doing it for their health or their well-being or whatever, you're actually creating a deprivation mindset that will lead to binge eating. And so a better solution to that is to make some cookie dough that doesn't have eggs in it, if that's your fear, and let your child enjoy that or eat as much of that as they want. That will lead to habituation. So imagine that you are going to now only eat cookie dough every single meal for the rest of the month, okay? For a whole month. That's the only food that's available to you. How soon do you think you would be sick of cookie dough? I would probably be sick of cookie dough, to be honest, like by the end of the first day, I'm guessing, but like definitely by the end of the second day. I'd be craving some eggs or like turkey meatballs or just like a bagel, just like anything different. But like if I had to do that for days and a week, then I'm going to be craving vegetables, like, salads, green juices. It's going to be so much sugar and white flour and the same flavor over and over again that like I'm not going to want that anymore. Now, the point of habituation is not to have you now hate your favorite foods. It's to make foods neutral, all right? It's to make foods neutral in your mind. So while you might have that initial fear, like you're just gonna overdo it if you just eat foods you like, I promise you that if you follow the process of habituation, you will not do that. You will start to just eat them like any other food. I actually habituated cookies and cookie dough for myself. And it took me about a week and a half, but only because I made 2 different types of cookie dough. That's another thing. If you want to habituate a food, just stick with the exact same flavor of the food. So if you change the flavors of the food, it will take longer to habituate, which is totally fine. But if you pick one flavor and focus on it, you can habituate a food typically in less than a week and honestly within a few days. So I habituated a particular flavor of cookie dough within 3 days. All right. I eventually wanted a green juice, a veggie scramble, an apple, and I also gave myself permission to make the cookie dough again, and I just didn't want to. I was like, I feel very habituated to that particular flavor of cookie dough. So I want you to think for a moment about what foods did you like as a kid? The foods that you liked as a kid are often foods that you do not allow yourself to eat as an adult, which is actually really sad for your inner child, right? We all have a little inner child inside of us who is really craving love, acceptance, safety, pleasure, joy. And when you continually deny your inner child things that your inner child desires, it can lead to major mental health issues. And I don't think a lot of us talk about this or are aware of this, but it's really important that you honor your inner child. I personally loved pizza as a little girl. We always got pizza on Friday nights in my family, and then we go to the VHS video rental store, and we were allowed to pick out 2 to 3 movies to have for Friday night and over the weekend. And that was very fun and exciting to me. I loved Friday nights. And I also loved mac and cheese. My mom made the best mac and cheese from scratch. I loved cookies. I loved bagels. I loved French toast and waffles and pancakes. And, those were some of the foods I liked as a kid. Well, can you imagine as an adult? Definitely I started to eliminate those foods or forbid those foods. Guess what? Those are also the foods that I tend to binge eat in my past, like pizza and cookies and cookie doughs, okay? So it's important that you really start to allow yourself to eat foods you like and learn the process of habituation. Okay, my second tip for increasing food satisfaction is to eat undistracted. When you do distracted eating, you will feel like you missed out on your meal and then it's over before you know it, okay? Right? You're like, wait, this was supposed to be a really enjoyable, pleasurable part of my day. I get joy and satisfaction from eating, but because I was reading a book or working at my computer or reading the newspaper or watching TV, I wasn't fully present to my food and I actually feel like it's over before I know it and I missed out. That can lead you to eating more and being like, why am I overeating? Well, because you are distracted. So when I eat now, I do not read. I grew up in a house where my parents read the newspaper every single morning. I know the newspaper probably sounds really old-fashioned now, but when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, getting the morning paper delivered to our house was just a very normal part of our family routine. And so the paper would be out in the mornings and we would read it. And obviously that was a great thing to do for my reading comprehension skills and my knowledge of world events as a child and teenager, better than watching TV, I think, in the morning. But it actually still taught me to do distracted eating and to eat my breakfast hunched over the newspaper, reading comics, reading articles, and not fully enjoying my food and not fully being present. I also recommend no watching of anything. Don't watch a video on YouTube. Don't watch a TV show. Don't watch a movie. You should be fully present with your food, with your eyes. Now, I will say that occasionally I enjoy, noshing on some takeout with my boyfriend while we're watching Love is Blind or The Ultimatum or whatever other trashy reality relationship show is up, because we just get a lot of joy and satisfaction from watching those. But in general, I try not to watch anything or read anything while eating anymore. Also, no working, okay? No working through your lunch and sitting in front of your computer. I know that's really hard for a lot of people who have busy jobs and busy lives, but I promise you, like, you have 10 minutes to eat. And if you don't have 10 minutes to eat your lunch without working, like, you've got bigger problems. You need to, like, reevaluate your priorities in life and, like, you know, is this job good for you? And, like, where are you stretched too thin? So, what do I recommend you do while you're eating? Well, one, sit outside if you can. If it's safe to sit outside, if you have a spot, if it's peaceful and relaxing, go for it. Obviously, like if you have no place to sit, don't like sit on the side of the road. Like that wouldn't be enjoyable. But if you have a peaceful patio or there's a park nearby your work, go and sit outside or sit outside at like a cafe or coffee shop. That's a really enjoyable way to eat as well. When I worked as an ER nurse, we had a garden at my hospital called the Tranquility Garden. Doesn't that sound nice? And I would make a point to go and eat my lunch there every single day because it was truly more relaxing and enjoyable to eat my food in a quiet, beautiful space with nature than in the break room with the TV blaring, you know, coworkers coming in and out and seeing patients roll down the hallway. I will also listen to music or a podcast while I eat. Now, I think that it's okay to listen to something while you eat because you don't need your ears to eat, right? Okay. So you need your eyes to eat and you need your tongue and your mouth and your nose. You need and your hands. You need your other four senses to eat properly without distraction, but you actually don't need your ears to eat. It's like driving, right? You don't need your ears. I mean, you need your ears to like listen for horns and things, but in general, you don't need your ears as much for driving as you do like your other senses, right? And eating is the same way. That's why like it's great to eat with other people and have conversation. And being with other people in a positive environment also increases satisfaction, okay? So my third tip is to be mindful. And this kind of builds off of what we're talking about eating undistracted. Like I want you to use all four of your senses. And look, you obviously use your hearing when you're eating too. You might hear the crunch of like your bagel or cracker or like a slurping of your soup, or like hopefully you're not slurping your soup. My boyfriend, and we'll talk about this like right now. So my boyfriend actually like hates mouth sounds. So that's an example of how like listening while you're eating could actually make you not enjoy your food. And this is really funny. He told me that I like sometimes chew with my mouth open, which was kind of embarrassing, but it was more like I'm making like smacking noises, I guess, with my mouth. And I realized that I wanted to make sure he felt like good while he was eating around me. And so I started to just really pay attention. Like, am I opening my mouth while I'm eating? And what I discovered is I was actually taking too big of bites. I was like taking such big bites that I almost had to open my mouth to chew. Does that make sense? And so I started consciously taking smaller bites, which increased my satisfaction because it increased the length of which I got to eat. And then it was almost like my mouth got to have the flavor more times because it was smaller bites. Does that make sense? So have smaller bites when you eat, chew thoroughly, really feel and taste your food. Smell your food. I ate some cookies the other day, some M&M cookies. And by the way, the best cooking blog or baking blog I found is Sally's Baking Addiction. She has amazing recipes that come up flawless. Anyway, I was eating these cookies and they had turned out so good. Like, I only like really soft cookies. I don't like crunchy, hard cookies at all. And so they had come out the perfect texture. They were soft. They had the little crunch from the mini M&Ms. They were so good. And I decided to smell the cookie, and I smelled it, and it had a richer smell. Like there was another nuance or layer to the cookie when I smelled it versus just tasting it. I could smell more of like the breadiness of it, which was really cool. So it enhanced my pleasure of the cookie to incorporate smell consciously in it versus just taste. And then look at your food. Keep your eyes on your food. Look at the colors. Look at the textures. Look at the patterns. Look at the shape of it. All of those things also increase your satisfaction. Put your food down, pause, look outside, interact with the person you're eating with, or if you're by yourself, just take a moment and express gratitude that you have a meal. There's a reason that so many cultures say grace or give thanks before eating, right? Because we're acknowledging that we're fully dependent on God and the earth to nourish us, and without those things, we go hungry. Okay, my fourth tip is to eat when you're mildly to moderately hungry. What does this mean? Hunger is a scale, just like pain. So any sensation that we have in our body has a range of intensity to it. I learned this as a nurse, right? We have a pain scale. What's your pain at? 1, no pain, or 10, the worst pain you've ever experienced in your life, right? When I had an appendicitis, the pain for me was the worst pain I'd ever experienced, so it was a 10, right? And maybe you stub your toe and that's a 3. There's a range. Hunger is the same thing. Hunger is a sensation that you feel from inside your body, which is called interoceptive awareness. And hunger has ranges. You can have 0 hunger, okay? But like you can have 0 hunger because you're super stuffed and like uncomfortably full, or you could have 0 hunger because you're comfortably full and satisfied, or you could have no hunger because you just had a snack and you're gonna be full for 45 minutes, but then you're gonna get hungry again, right? So there's a scale. When we have no hunger, food will be less satisfying to eat. Okay, I want you to remember that. If you have no hunger and you try to eat something, you will feel less satisfied. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have something to eat. For example, when I fly on an airplane, I might get trapped on that airplane for a 6-hour flight. I know they're not bringing any food. Maybe they're selling, or giving me a bag of pretzels, but it's not going to satisfy me. And I know if I don't eat something before that flight, I'm going to be ravenous and feel sick, in a few hours. So sometimes we have to eat, and that's called practical hunger. That's like being conscious of our schedule and our access to food. So sometimes we might choose to have a small meal and eat without hunger, but just know that it probably will be less satisfying. And that's okay at times. Also, if you have ravenous hunger and you go to eat, you will also feel less satisfied. Your biological impulse to eat will take over so intensely that you will not be as mindful, you will not eat as slowly, you won't be as conscious, you will be rushing to just appease the hunger pains in your gut. So you will have more satisfaction from your food when you eat at mild to moderate hunger. I know that since I've started practicing this really consciously, I intentionally really wait until I feel typically moderate hunger before I eat. I'll sometimes eat at mild hunger, or sometimes I'll eat if I have something coming up for practical hunger. But I rarely eat now when I'm ravenous or no hunger. I really feel I get so much satisfaction when I eat more in that moderate hunger range. Okay, and my 5th and final tip is to keep stress low in your eating environment if possible. So as I mentioned, as an ER nurse, I would walk to that tranquility garden to eat lunch and have a much more peaceful eating experience. Or I would go to a break room that was a little bit of a walk away from my unit because it was empty, it was quiet, I could play relaxing music, I could listen to a podcast, and I could just feel my stress go down. I didn't want to force feed myself, while I was stressed, and being an ER nurse was a super stressful job. So I hear from a lot of you, a lot of my clients have high levels of stress because they're juggling family, career, home, and aging parents, family issues, just life in general. And so I encourage you to really try to reduce your stress when you're eating. Eat outdoors if you can, if it's relaxing and safe in your environment. Play relaxing music, light some candles, dim the lights, whatever you can do to keep stress low in your eating environment, by avoiding discussing tense issues with other people while eating. Save those topics for another time. Those things will all increase your satisfaction. I hope today's episode helped you and inspired you. Your homework this week or your invitation is to practice implementing one of these 5 tips or try implementing all of them. And let me know how it goes. You can send me a message on Instagram at Heather McConaughey and let me know if it helped you. But I'm really excited for the next few weeks to roll out these new topics for you. My goal is always to empower you as a woman. So I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon.